I have talked to you so much about my partnership with Cozy Earth, and I truly cannot get enough. As I mentioned last time, I ordered the super soft bamboo pajamas. And the thing is, they are so amazing. I'm going to have to buy more. So, no one tell my husband, please, because I promised that I would not be buying any more clothes because I've completely taken over the closet and the drawers and everything. But I have to tell you, the pajamas are amazing. And first of all, when you pair the bamboo pajamas with the sheet set, it is like next level. So the thing is here, I told you that Cozy Earth is all about making that 5 to 9, so the time after your 9 to 5, the most comfortable, luxurious part of your day, turning your home into a true retreat. And this all truly starts with Cozy Earth. So if you are ready to turn your bedroom or your life into a true retreat, one that feels like a luxury hotel, but better because it's your own space and you don't have to, sleep on a hotel bed, because even if it's a luxury hotel, it's still a hotel bed. Go to cozyearth.com and use my code HUMANHR for 40% off their best-selling sheets, pajamas, towels, and more. It is not too late to get a Mother's Day gift. I'm just letting you know there's plenty of time. And if you hear this after Mother's Day, that's okay. Treat yourself, treat a mother in your life, treat a father in your life, treat anyone in your life to luxury and a true sense of relaxation and comfort with Cozy Earth. And by the way, if you get a post-purchase survey, please let them know that you heard about Cozy Earth right here. And I'm probably going to end up sharing the next thing that I've bought on our next conversation around Cozy Earth. But I'm letting you know that it's now become something that every week I'm on the website looking at, okay, what do I need? Should I buy towels this time? Should I buy more pajamas? And either way, I think it's a really great investment again. So if you are ready to make that investment into the luxurious lifestyle of Cozy Earth, again, go to cozyearth.com and use my code HUMANHR for 40% off. Welcome to the Bringing the Human Back to Human Resources podcast. I'm Traci Chernoff, and I've spent my entire professional career in HR. Each week, we'll explore the delicate balance between people and business with the aim to reconnect the two and create meaningful outcomes. Listen in as I share my own experiences, challenge the status quo, and chat with guests from various industries about our mission to bring the human back to human resources. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Bringing the Human Back to Human Resources podcast. Thank you so much for being here for another week. I have another fabulous guest for you this week, and we're going to be speaking a whole lot about internal communications and really things that will allow you to expand your operational excellence and just be a better business leader wherever you might sit in your business. So allow me to introduce Lizabeth Wesely-Casella, who is an operational excellence and internal communications expert specializing in workflow efficiency, leadership alignment, and return to office transitions. As CEO of L12 Services, she helps organizations streamline processes, improve collaboration, and enhance employee engagement. A Lean Six Sigma certified strategist, Lizabeth has led high-impact projects across several industries, including energy, health, technology, NGO, and trade associations. Lizabeth, it is an honor to know you, and I'm so excited that you are here.
Oh, thank you so much, Traci. I have been looking forward to this moment, and being aligned with you and being a guest on your podcast is the highlight of this year. I'm just super excited.
That is definitely way too generous, but I'll take it. I've learned that you have, like, when someone compliments you, you just have to say thank you. So thank you. I'm so glad.
Well, you create a product that is just amazing. I mean, I love listening. I always learn something. So
Thank
being
you.
on here makes me feel like I got my credibility.
You do. Not just anyone gets on this podcast.
Right.
Just so everyone knows, there's an extensive process to this. So no, all jokes aside, I'm really, really honored that you've chosen and allowed me to spend some time with you today. And I'm really excited to hear from an expert herself on things that I have not necessarily had a ton of exposure to, frankly. And this is where I think we'll all learn quite a bit. And I think maybe just generally speaking, when we think about internal communications or when we think about operational excellence and really thinking about your experience and all of the organizations that you've worked with over the years, what maybe the question is, are there certain things fundamentally that companies can or should have to at least set the stage for operational excellence or being able to leverage or lean into internal comms?
That's a multifaceted question, and it's a good one. Let's start with what is the common thread that I find. When I'm working with organizations, I can come in through the HR director, through the chief operating officer, through the CEO. I end up spending most of my working time and collaboration time with the head of HR.
Sure.
Where the common thread lies is that HR has been tasked to do something that is outside of HR's expertise area. It's outside their bailiwick, and they're working very hard to do it, whether it's internal communications or it's increasing engagement or it's developing a strategy. But that's not HR's function, but it's been lumped in with HR. Like so many, so many great ideas, people in HR end up catching things because they are really well equipped to perform tasks that develop other people. And so when people in leadership are thinking about messaging and improving processes, they're often thinking about people improvement. And so they align all of this work with HR. So when we go in, my team and I, we're working with HR to take that weight of responsibility off their shoulders and then create a streamlined system or process that they can follow, hopefully with support from outside their department. And we're explaining to them, what operational excellence means and how to leverage institutional knowledge through internal communications to reach operational excellence. And so after we're gone, HR will have its own voice at the table to say, this piece of your design or this piece of the goal fits squarely within the parameters and the gates of responsibility of HR. These other pieces, though, we need our other departments, or we need collaborative partners to help us complete the circle so we can complete the task.
That's really helpful. This is exactly what I mean. Like, I've never had exposure to like an outside resource, really, who can come in and help to identify areas that would improve the operations. Like in my experience, it's always like, okay, this is our problem. This is how we're going to fix it. How do we make it, operational? And then there's also, of course, the change management piece there. But to your point, it's so often coming off the backs of, oh, well, this is a problem. We have to fix it. You take it on. Or because of like an extreme sense of responsibility that HR leaders certainly tend to have and feel, it's like, okay, well, I'll take this on because if it's not fixed, it's going to end up being an issue for all of these other reasons.
Right. I'm going to end up dealing with the fallout.
Yeah, right. Like, I don't want to have a disengaged person. And so I'd rather figure out how to resolve this issue. Like, one of the things that comes to mind that in all of my experiences probably has been a consistent challenge to like operationalize. And that is like internal mobility, like career movement, interest in new opportunities, not necessarily from like a what jobs are open standpoint, but from like succession planning through actual growth to people applying internally, being recognized and noticed for those opportunities. Like all of that becomes a very important challenge, but it's also very difficult to operationalize because there are so many moving parts. So I don't know if that's like a reasonable example, or if you have other examples of where there's a need for a company or HR leaders to really think about how they outsource some of these things to improve their operational excellence. Is that a fair question?
That is a fair question, and there are a couple different examples that come to mind. But I think the easiest way that everyone will be able to understand what we're talking about is when HR is asked to increase engagement, and the next statement to follow that command is, and get everybody using the intranet. Like,
Yeah.
you just
Like,
say,
oh,
okay,
it's so
everybody,
sexy, the intranet.
right?
Yeah.
Everybody, the information is on the intranet, and as of midnight, you will now know to go there, and it will be in,
it's downloaded into your brains.
Yes, and the information is being presented there in a way that you will absorb and understand quickly. It
Totally.
sounds like a no-brainer. You have the tool, you implement the tool, or you distribute guidelines on how to use the tool. You make the tool pretty, and nobody's using it. That happens everywhere,
constantly.
right? And depending on your the type of tool that you're using, the software, you may love it, you may hate it, you may not even care about it. But a tool is a tool. The important piece is understanding how that goal, that project, needs to be approached, and using a little bit of behavioral psychology to think about the population that you're going to be trying to engage, and then giving them the what's in it for me so that they do engage. So it's really larger than I've identified a problem, the solution is they need to use it, and then we'll reach our goal. The problem is actually you have people who are there, you have a tool, nobody's using it, and you haven't dug deep enough to find out whether or not you understand the chaos tolerance of your workforce or the change resilience of your workforce and how they need to be communicated with, what the actual value proposition is for the workforce, and whether or not it's different than what leadership thinks it is, and then whether or not you're using the tools that, or the channels that you need to reach all the various segments of your workforce. So it gets more complex the more you dig deeper into it. So bringing in someone like me and my team, or other, change management and internal comms experts, they're the ones that can say, we're not starting with a blank sheet of paper. We already have the best practices or a draft of the scaffolding you would need in order to build this. So we're bringing in different types of tools that will help you assess that chaos tolerance of your organization. Or we're bringing in case studies that you can choose from that say, this is more along the lines of the end result that I would like. I would like people using our intranet, not necessarily as a chat room or not necessarily as news updates. We want them to use it because all of our forms and our knowledge are there. So you want people to be able to work within nuance in order to help you get there. Now, all of that is one major component of the larger picture, which is what is operational excellence. And that is delivering your products or your services better, faster, and cheaper. We can identify what faster and cheaper is. That's super easy to measure, but how do you identify what better is? And how do you, once leadership or the strategic team has defined better, how do you share that really, really clear picture with the entire population of people who work for you, so they're all, rowing in the same direction, so to speak?
That's so interesting. My mind has started to run, so forgive me if I'm taking us, in a million different directions here. But my first thought is like, well, maybe let me add a quick anecdote here. I often say, like, to myself, at least, I've probably said it out loud too, maybe. Imagine if I just was the first HR person at a company and like I was there on day one when the company opened up. Like, maybe there wouldn't be as many challenges in figuring out some of like the ways in which we work because you have things set up right away. But then I challenge myself and I'm like, well, that's not true because you just like hit the ground running and you don't have budget for a tool and like you just end up in the same kind of situation. So that led me to this question, which is, are there companies based on their size or industry that are better suited for really looking outside for this type of support versus inside? Because, like I said, in my experience, we've always tried to really solve these challenges internally, but we were not necessarily always successful. And that's where, finding someone to really outsource these challenges to could be really beneficial. But I'm just curious if you, based on the people you've worked with, if you've seen like a right size, for example, for, clients.
There isn't a right size that we've found, but there is an intentionality that we've found that for successful organizations, that is the through line. And that intentionality is using the institutional knowledge. So the beginning of what you just described, everybody has the best of intentions. They want to use that team of teams or tiger team to solve the problem because they realize, hopefully, that using institutional knowledge helps to uncover the immediate problems faster.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is when you use your internal teams or tiger teams, it's like testing against yourself. You don't have that 35,000 foot view that allows you to look down and talk about or identify, I should say, the problems that are truly operational and valuable and should be a priority versus the things that are making you crazy and that always end up at the bottom of the list, but they never roll off. Like that is a real thing. Meetings that turn into ideation sessions that never turn into actually getting things done. So glad I said things.
Getting things done.
Getting things done. That is a challenge for internal teams, team of teams, and tiger teams. So when an organization reaches out to an external consultant or, someone to guide them, what they're really saying is, you know how to facilitate these changes. I want you to not only take advantage of the institutional knowledge because that's an inexpensive way to identify our problems, but I also want the people who work here, and this is really important, this goes directly to job satisfaction and retention. I want the people who work here, who maybe we asked 4.5 years ago to go home with zero resources, do their work from home during a pandemic while their life was exploding, and keep the wheels on the bus, and they did it. We want to value those people. We want to recognize them, not in a staff spotlight way, but in a really meaningful way that says, you problem solved for us. Thank you. Now let's take those solutions that you created and let's bring them back into the new work model. For example, if everybody's been working remote up until now or just a while ago, now you have bodies who everyone's been their own problem solver and they're on the same team, but now they're in physical proximity with each other, and all of those solutions don't necessarily line up. And if they line up at all, they don't do so smoothly. So you need to go through that period of streamlining those workflows in order to create that operational excellence. If you're doing it inside, there's far too much of a risk of politics and personality and, all of the non-ideal personal traits to come out. When somebody like my team comes in, what we're saying is, yes, your team needs to streamline, and your team is one part of the larger picture. We also have these other 5 teams that we need to streamline. And then once we've streamlined, we need to make sure that those operational goals that we're trying to reach are exactly the direction that we're going to target, and that it makes sense for you to still be working in that workflow, even if we reverse engineer the process from the goal that we want to reach back to you. So we're testing forward and we're testing backward to make sure that we are doing the work in the way that we need to in order to become this new environment.
Interesting. One of the thoughts that I have, and I don't know if you can answer this, but I've at least seen where in an effort as an HR leader, in an effort to streamline or improve operations or optimize, that there's sometimes a fear that streamline, optimize, improve, that those words equal reduction in force or changes to headcount because of identifying areas where things are not streamlined or operationally sound, right? So just generally speaking, have you encountered that type of pushback or feedback? And if so, what do you say to someone who would feel that way?
Well, we've experienced this in real time, looking at what's recently happened with the federal government in an effort to, create efficiency. A lot of people have lost their job. This is not a new experience. I don't know if you're old enough to remember the movie Office Space.
Yes, of course. I am old enough and I remember it.
Okay, so the 2 Bobs.
Yeah.
I have a colleague, and I'm Elizabeth and she's Lindsay, and we're the 2 L's, and we always start our onboarding referencing that movie and
So funny.
joking, we are not here to take your jobs.
That's so funny. Yeah.
But it's a common feeling that, that could be the case. Now, some organizations, for example, are using return to office as a means to slim down their workforce. If we are in contract with those client partners, what we are doing is we are helping them make that transition for their folks one that is a positive transition. So,
Right.
Ample conversations, opportunities for placement, personal development on the way out. Like, we're really making it a matter of the company needs you to be in the office in order to reach the goals. If you choose not to be in the office, that doesn't make you a bad person. It means that you're no longer aligned with the goals and that there's going to be a place for you to do your amazing work, you super loyal person, in an environment that suits you best. Your priorities have changed or our priorities have changed, but that nobody's bad. So
Right.
we're working with organizations to help them do that. However, other organizations are very interested in keeping all of their people through return to office. And so they're going the extra mile to make sure that they're creating ample messaging opportunities to clarify what the end goal of success looks like to keep the people. All of that is to say, if you're in an organization that is a culture of innovation, or if you're in an organization that values retention, just because someone is saying streamline, improve, or any of those kind of scary buzzwords does not mean that a job or a department is on the line. It should mean, ideally, that what we're doing is valuing that person or valuing that department or valuing that work. And we want to make sure that we are getting to that goal as efficiently as possible so that your job is easier.
Mm-hmm.
We want your job to be easier because we want you to A, stick around, B, feel as though you are valued and you belong here, and the biggest one, C, we want you to come to us with your innovative ideas for improving products or improving services or improving the impact on the community around us. We want you because you're the asset. And so if you are hearing streamlined and you really believe that your company is one that values you as an employee and you're not just a commodity, that's the time when you want to come forward and say, I have ideas. I've got a notebook full of ideas. As I perform my work every day, here are things that I think would be inconvenient for the customer, or here are things that I think would add value for the customer. Let's, create a program or a plan where we can test these business ideas, or we can focus group people and see if this is something they want. But be the person that, while things are getting streamlined, says, hey, while we're making these improvements, let's consider taking it a step even further. That will be incredibly helpful, not only to you in your career, but it allows your leadership to understand that you are personally invested in the organization, and you will probably be thought of when dollars for personal and professional development pop back up.
Right. Yeah, that's really helpful to hear. And I appreciate you taking on that question because I know it's inevitable. I remember in some of my retail days, anytime we talked about optimizing or streamlining, the end user, so to speak, of that new initiative, or the inevitably the hourly worker was like, should I be worried about my job?
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that we go the extra mile to explain what that looks like and what that means, to your point, so that people can feel that assurance that this is all focused on their benefit, and the company's benefit too. Which leads me to a thought here, and ultimately a question. One of the things that we had talked about when we first met a number of months ago was the importance of aligning to a company's values and their mission. So for each individual at that company to really be aligned. And you kind of talked about it just before, which, when it comes to return to office, where if that's not something that is in alignment with someone, that's okay. There's no emotion there. Returning to the office setting is just not what is now a misalignment between the company or the employer and the employee. And so I'm curious, in the work that you've done, if you've seen values and the mission of a company change and evolve as they've decidedly worked toward improved operational excellence. Like, for example, maybe a company always considered themselves to be expert in communication or innovation, but then through the process realized that they actually weren't doing that, and maybe their values or their mission changed. Did you ever see anything like that? Or was it just really, have you just seen this further emphasis on the importance of that alignment?
What I often see is that there will be, regardless of department, sometimes multiple departments at the same time, there will be people who learn about the Six Sigma definition and philosophy of operational excellence. Like, we could just do another entire segment on
For
what
sure,
is operational excellence, but I'm trying to speak in broad strokes here. There are going to be people that learn about operational excellence. Maybe they've been interested in process improvement, so they have a little bit of that shared language. Those people will find the project that we've worked on together fascinating, and they will see the possibilities of how that can continue in other projects throughout the organization. So if, for example, an organization has been really good at developing products for, actually an example for developing products for the market for industrial cleaning, we found that there were several different folks from different departments who, once they started learning about how you look across an organization to create operational excellence and self-healing workflows, they wanted to continue doing that far beyond the project that we were on. Our scope limited us to creating operational excellence in the internal comms systems themselves, but it didn't apply to the way that it could be used testing their products. So we had an entire group of people come together, form their own team, and start talking about testing business ideas, innovation culture, and then operational excellence as it related to their end product. And it's been interesting over the years to watch them move from idea to idea and application to application. Those people are all still there, and I believe it's like 14 of them that started the program 4 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's a pretty good retention rate, if you ask me.
Industrial cleaners, what you gonna do? They're crazy.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I mean, this is all really interesting because, again, even just knowing some of the demographics of the audience who is listening today, many are potentially at a point in their careers where they have some influence over decisions or how operations flow. And when I think about something like, going back to my one example around like internal mobility and how we grow people and we give them opportunities, or how we plan for succession and things like that, finding someone who can help guide you through that before you have to realize that maybe you're not the person that should take that on because you have all these other things that you have to accomplish in your day, week, month, quarter, year. Figuring that out earlier on makes a whole lot of sense. Like, I do wonder how, even for someone like me, I've been in HR over 10 years and obviously have my podcast, and I really haven't had the opportunity before to take operational excellence outside of the, HR team or the operations team. And I think, to your point, having someone who can come in, have this one particular focus and goal, or maybe multiple goals, and be at a bird's eye view, looking at everything holistically, and then decidedly saying, okay, these are the things that you can do today to improve your operations, to improve the engagement of your team, to improve their productivity. I mean, it to me, it feels like there's a whole lot of ROI there.
I believe that there is, and an organization doesn't need to be the starting point for creating either improved internal communications or a pursuit of operational excellence. I'm going to pull those apart real quickly here and just briefly go over what I think might be helpful to your audience. For organizations where HR is being overtasked, asked to do too many things, I always refer to Nancy. Nancy gets everything because she's good at doing everything, but eventually Nancy is going to burn out and everybody's going to be in terrible trouble. Yeah. If we think of operational excellence, one of the main characteristics of it is the ability for everyone within a team to have line of sight across the team and understand when a process is breaking down. So if we were to go in and just be, supporting one department, let's say it's the HR department, I would say, let's use this microcosm of the organization and the director of HR, the head of people and culture, the SVP or the CHRO, whoever that person is at the top of this specific pyramid, that person looks like the leader. And we think of the hierarchy on its way down. We would want everyone in that team, whether it's a team of 10 or a team of 85, to have a deeper understanding, not just of their own job, but of the gates of responsibility. What needs to happen immediately before them in a process and what needs to happen immediately after them in a process, kind of like being cross-trained. The purpose of that is so that when a piece of service or a piece of product, whatever that piece of workflow is, comes to your desk, you can look at it and say, I recognize that this is a completed product until it hit me. Or I recognize this isn't a completed product when it hit me and I need to send it back up the line. Being able to have enough knowledge to see when a process is broken and enough autonomy to fix it without involving a manager is one of the key pieces to operational excellence. Mm-hmm. So when HR is being asked to do too many things that are outside of its bailiwick, then I would argue that there is a real good reason why applying operational excellence within the department then would matter. It would allow for the people within the team to understand the workflow that they already have that is their expertise and area, and to say, this new thing that we've been given isn't. It is breaking our process. It is breaking our flow. And I now know what it is, and I can either take it to the leader or I can take it to the manager and say, here's my argument for why this doesn't fit here right now. So it's not just the head of HR saying, I don't think we can do it because we can't take it on. It's the people who are working below them saying, this doesn't fit within the lexicon of what our responsibility is. And that's important because at any given point, if you are continually given too much stuff, you need more than one person to be able to say, not my stuff. And
that's so true. That's so true. It's like having a really strong advocate in your corner.
Yes. So, if you have a team of advocates who can all say the same thing and all use the same logic behind it, then it starts to make more sense. Now, I'm not saying anybody should say, no, not going to work with the rest of what the company wants. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is evaluating whether or not you can take on additional work can go through a logic and a fact pattern, and you can ask other people for their opinion if they have the same thinking that you do, and you work through it together. And you might find out that you're not alone saying, I don't think this is ours. Mm-hmm. Now, with internal communications and HR, one of the things that I frequently see is that organizations don't have their own internal comms teams, and they're asking HR to do that.
True.
If HR is going to take that on, then there needs to be I used the word scaffolding earlier, but maybe I should use the word system. Either way, I'm trying to describe something that's bare bones, a framework that people can understand that is effective and can, carry a load, carry some weight, but isn't the finished product. If HR is for a time going to take over internal communications, there's some basic things that they need to understand about channel use, communications policy, meaning how are we using each channel to communicate with different segments of our audiences, or using different types of information on each type of channel, and how we write for our various audiences. And the first thing to know, and I know that I mentioned this earlier, is to understand the chaos tolerance of your audience. And that doesn't mean how much more change they can deal with, or whether or not the world seems like it's on fire outside. It means how much detail can any given individual or group take before they believe that something is TLDR, too long didn't read, or they feel like they didn't get enough information and bullet points just don't make them comfortable that they can move forward. Mm-hmm. Understanding what that specific chaos tolerance level is and writing toward that, creating a style that supports that, is critical. Too many bullet points and not enough detail will leave people paralyzed, who we call order tolerant, who need those details. And conversely, too much text for somebody who's a choose your own adventure kind of person, the chaos tolerant people, also will, reduce your engagement. So your engagement really is dependent on using your channels correctly, putting the right information on each of those channels, and writing toward the needs of your audience, rather than writing toward the needs of the person who's trying to share the information. The person who created the message in their head, like, I want you to know about the company picnic. Okay. Not everyone wants to know about the company picnic in the same way.
Right. I wonder, for HR teams that are managing internal communications, is there value in having a non-HR alias? In the sense that, I guess the way that I'm thinking about this is that there are stigmas associated with HR. Sometimes people don't feel comfortable asking questions to HR leaders, even if they have a great relationship with them. They might have had like a really terrible experience in the past. It's just one of those things that is reality in many cases. And I wonder if there is a benefit in creating like some separation, even if it is coming from HR and you want to be transparent about who it's coming from, but even like the email sender being communications versus HR.
I don't know where I would land on that without thinking about it. And it may be specific to each individual organization and their culture. Mm-hmm. My natural instinct is to say transparency, just wherever it's going to go, let people know where it's going to go. And you're right. It's not infrequent that people believe that HR is the plant for the man.
Totally.
It's unfortunate. People, that's not the case. HR is there to help everyone concerned. But I think that the most important piece, if HR is taking on internal comms, it isn't where the information is coming from. It's whether or not people have a feedback mechanism that they can take advantage of to ask those questions. So, for example, if you're using your newsletter as kind of a prompt or a headlines vehicle, that anytime somebody reads something that they're interested in, they click and it takes them to SharePoint, which has the more detailed article in it. Make sure that at the end of that SharePoint article that has all the details, that there's a want more information or have any questions or learn more. There's some sort of link that goes to a phone number or an email where people can ask the questions and they don't feel as though they're burdening someone or just being sent to an FAQ. Where they can actually reach someone and have a dialogue, because really what we're trying to do is less inform people and more reach people. And reaching people means that we're learning things from them at the same time. Did that style of messaging land or not? Is this article something that people are actually interested in? Do we need to make an FAQ page about this one subject? Because comms is always moving, it's always changing, and it should be organic. But it also doesn't need to be super complicated. It just needs to be clear. And getting to that clarity requires a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of patience, because it is a process to get through.
That's all so helpful. And I think it's actually a really great point that it's about informing and not just, wait, am I getting that wrong? Wait, it's not about informing. It's really bigger than that, because informing is actually probably the easiest part of that. Look at how easy it was for me to mess up what you just said. This is why we need experts. But it's like, if I'm sending an email, I've informed, but once there's more interaction with the information, there is that, I almost want to say mutual ownership, but there's like the connection to what's actually being shared, and therefore a deeper understanding, to your point, and an ability for them to reach out and to have a deeper understanding of what has been shared. And it kind of just, I don't want to say it feels like innate to say, oh yeah, well, if I'm sending an email, that's not the end of it. But so much of what we all do as people, as leaders, is we are like, oh, sent an email, cross it off the list. Good. Okay. I can move on to the next thing. But that's just not enough, to your point.
But it's perfect behavioral psychology. I sent it, I check it off, I've got that dopamine hit.
Right. Yeah. And
I no
totally.
longer have to worry about this.
Yeah.
Here's probably like the pro tip. The pro tip of all of this is, regardless of the change, regardless of your goal, whether it's operational excellence or just staying alive another quarter, which there's no shame in that. A lot of us are going to be struggling for quite a bit over these next couple quarters. It just is what it is. When it comes to disseminating information and creating that dialogue throughout an organization, whether the organization is 5 people or 50,000 people, your best and most effective channel is, guess.
Face to face.
That got it.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Yes.
If you want to have the most informed and the highest engaged, and usually the least redundant re-asked questions.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You need to make sure that you are including your management level in all disseminated information. Ideally, you will have a comms meeting with all of middle management prior to every newsletter of substance going out. Now, if you do a newsletter every week, maybe you don't do a meeting every week. But if you know that there's like the first week of the month newsletter always has the what we're going to be focused on or changes or the big announcements in it, make sure that you have your manager meetings before that goes out and tell them specifically, hey, your teams need to know about benefits enrollment. They need to know about the picnic. They need to know that we have a new COO onboarding in September. We're going to make sure that we look at your open rates through SharePoint or whatever your intranet is. And if your folks aren't opening them at a rate that we really feel is important, that we've all discussed and agreed upon as the target number, we're going to be asking you to go in and have these conversations in your meetings so that we know that your people got the information. And we're going to ask you to report back to us what the questions were. You created a dialogue, we're going to be creating a dialogue. Now, this asking you to report and we're going to assign you, like, those sound really onerous. So I'm sure that there are other words that you could use to create greater buy-in and to create partnership. But those human beings being held accountable for sharing the information with the human beings below them or to the side of them, however you think of hierarchy, is the most effective way to make sure that your folks know what's going on. And it creates, deeper relationships that help you identify your rock stars.
Oh my gosh. Amazing advice, amazing feedback, amazing insights. I've really learned a lot. And there are some things that I think I can probably do differently, even in my day-to-day, to have greater engagement on the information that's important to us that we need to, impart some importance on others with. So I really appreciate you again joining the podcast, being here today for this week's episode. And It's been so wonderful getting to know what you do and how you leverage your expertise in all of these various industries with so many companies. So thank you so much for taking the time. And I'd love to give you a moment to share where the listeners can connect with you as well.
Oh, well, thank you. And
Yeah.
thank you for letting me be helpful. I mean, really, right now, I'm at a point in my career, I'm at a point in our growth that things are a little bit on fire everywhere and uncertainty is prevalent. And our tagline for 16 years has been, we create clarity from chaos. So,
I
if I
love
can be
that.
helpful, I want to do it. We're all part of the same community right now. And, the American business community needs all the boats to rise. So
Totally.
I appreciate the opportunity. And to that end, I'm going to probably share some sort of worksheet that will align with what we've been talking about here that anyone can download and, use to maybe look at their internal comms channels or maybe to help create accountability from executive conversations to managers. We can talk about that afterward. But if people would like to reach me, you can find me on LinkedIn at Lizabeth Wesely-Casella. The Wesely-Casella is spelled a little bit off. It's WESELY-CASELLA. Or you can always visit my webpage or the LinkedIn page for L12 Services. The address for the website is l12services.com, no hyphen. And I will look forward to having a conversation with anybody who has any questions. Like I said, let's use some of this institutional knowledge and find inexpensive, fast ways to solve the problems that either are occurring right now or that you may be seeing down the pike if you're a futurist.
Yes, I love that. And absolutely, I mean, whatever you share with me, I will share with the listeners in the show notes. So everything will be linked, including your website and your LinkedIn. So
Fantastic.
Elizabeth, thank you so much. It's been really fun.
Thank you. I am so grateful.
Of course. Hey, just before you go, don't forget to subscribe to this show so that you are the first to hear when an episode drops each week. And maybe leave a 5-star review and a comment about how much you loved this episode. Plus, if you have someone in mind who would really enjoy this episode, make sure you share it with them. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next week.